You can, through meditation, explore your inner space to go deeper. And through meditation and yoga practices that prepare you, as you described earlier, for meditation, you can begin to get glimpses of this light, of this enlightenment in your life, and feel a little lighter.
Do you like meditation? Do you want to learn more about it? Well, good news. We have an incredible guest on this week's podcast. Her name is Ann Swanson. She's a mind-body science educator and certified yoga therapist. She's the author of The Science of Yoga and her newest book, Meditation for the Real World. Before we begin, I do want to remind you to click here to subscribe to get every episode on our channel if you're watching us on YouTube, or if you're listening to us on Spotify, iTunes, or other podcast services. Don't forget to subscribe so you can get access to all these incredible interviews. So without further ado, I'd love for you to meet Ann Swanson and her interview with Dr. Rob.
We're here with Ann Swanson, author of Meditation for the Real World. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here, Dr. Rob.
You're welcome. Good to see you. Where do you live?
I live in Hawaii. I wish I could flip the camera around right now so you can see I have an ocean view right now.
Nice.
So that's what I'm looking at, but the lighting's better on me this way. So
Love it. Yeah, we're in right outside of DC, and it's cold today as usual. So anyway, welcome to the podcast. I know you, like we were saying earlier, from The Science of Yoga, a great book that almost I think every yogi knows and has that on their shelves. Yeah, what a great illustrated book. So good. Yeah.
thank you. Yeah. It's been 5 years since that came out.
Yeah, it's been a while, right? But now you got a book coming out called Meditation for the Real World.
Yes.
You have a
I'm
hard
so
copy.
excited.
Yeah.
It's by the same publisher, DK. So you know it's going to be beautiful. They really prioritize illustrations, and they did not slack on this one. I worked with a New York Times and New Yorker illustrator, Michelle Mildenberg-Lara, and she did these gorgeous, relaxing illustrations that just create a mood, the color scheme. It's a very different vibe than the other book, but it's still just a beautiful book to have on your nightstand or on your coffee table.
Yes. And it's a perfect segue, right? Because in the yoga tradition, the asanas come first, which prepares the body for the actual work of meditation, right? To go deeper into the mind.
You know, I hadn't thought about how my book career kind of mimics that. I wonder what's next. Maybe something on enlightenment. Still working on that one though.
That's right, because the journey is towards the self, the higher self. Yeah, so yeah, let's get into the book. I have so many questions, and there's so much good content in this book. Um, how did you get interested in, let's hear a little bit about your background. How did you get interested in yoga, meditation? How did you become who you are today?
Well, just like many people, I came to yoga because I was stressed, anxious, and I was dealing with chronic pain since I was a teenager. And so I came to yoga to solve those problems. And I, at first, wasn't into the whole meditation part of it. I would lie in Shavasana and be like, oh my God, it's time to go. I already did the practice. I'm ready to go. I have things to do. So it did take me a while to warm up to it. But I think a lot of people come for that physical practice and how it's going to affect them, how they know it's going to affect them. And so I spent years practicing yoga and Tai Chi, Qigong, and these mind-body practices, and obviously getting more and more used to meditation. When I would go to many classes, you know, it wouldn't stick, but then every once in a while they would do a technique and I'm like, that one works for me. So for example, when you're in Shavasana and you squeeze your muscles all one by one, each area, and then you release, it's called progressive muscle relaxation. I talk about that, the science of that in this book. When you do that before going into a meditation or Shavasana, I found that, wow, I can really relax. I can go into a deeper state. So I slowly started to get deeper into the practice, as I think many of us do. And I ended up when I graduated from college, going to China. I bought a one-way ticket to China. It was the recession, and there weren't as many jobs here. There were tons of jobs there. So I went there to teach English at a college, and I had been studying Chinese also. So I was there, and I was super depressed. It was gray, it was gloomy, I was isolated. And so I started doing more and more yoga, more and more Tai Chi in the parks, and started to feel that impact for myself. And then I decided, you know what? I'm going to get a teacher training in this. I ended up doing my yoga teacher training in Shanghai, and half of it was in Chinese. So I had to do my test off in Chinese. And then half of it was in English with Indian teachers. And the Indian teachers convinced me to go to India right from China. So this led me to India to study for my advanced teacher training. And from there, I also studied with my teacher there, Yogi Shivadas, sound healing, and a variety of other modalities, Ayurvedic massage. And I left there knowing that I wanted to dive deeper into this. And I thought, okay, the way to dive deeper is to become a scientist, become a doctor or physical therapist, and then you'll be able to be the best yoga teacher that there is. So I did the pre-med course load. I took all the classes in chemistry and all the anatomy and physiology. I worked in a cadaver lab. I became a massage therapist inspired by this time in India. And from here, I decided, you know what, as I was applying to schools, maybe med school, PT school is not my path. I heard about this Master of Science in Yoga Therapy. I was like, really, that's what I want to be doing. I'm still glad I took all of those science courses because they prepared me to write this
Sure.
book, Science of Yoga. And I ended up getting a Master of Science in Yoga Therapy. And from there, getting the book, Science of Yoga.
Wow. What a journey. Incredible. Yeah, I was first introduced to yoga uh, pretty young. I was pretty young. A friend of mine, like we were still in high school around that age, and he had gone to Austin. I was living in Texas at that time, and one of the Hare Krishnas had given him a copy of the Bhagavad Gita, and he said, I wasn't interested, but when I saw the book, I thought about you because he knew I
Mm.
was interested in meditation and yoga and all this stuff. So he brought me the book, and there I started to read more about the philosophy of meditation and yoga, and was fascinated. And since then, I kind of always kept it in the back of my mind. I'm going to practice one day, and learn
Yeah.
this. It's so important. So I ended up in graduate school going into psychology, and kind of got lost my way for a while. And like you, it was the pain that kind of brought me back to uh, yoga and meditation. I started getting um, these cramps in my leg, and the doctors couldn't figure out what it was. But I went to my local yoga studio, and sure enough, they helped me out, and just by practicing, it went away. So I knew this was a powerful system. So, uh, in the book, you talk a lot about different types of meditation, and what's a good definition for the everyday person to understand? How do you define meditation?
Well, first, I'm going to say it's not stopping your thoughts. People think, oh, I'm not good at meditation because my mind wanders too much and I can't stop my thoughts. So I've tried it. I'm not good.
Right.
It's not for me. And that's not what it is. It actually has several steps. Let's see if I can pull up a diagram here in the book that really illustrates it, because it is a cycle. It isn't just the one thing. I thought it would be a lot quicker. You can cut this
Sure.
part. So in the book, I have this diagram that shows what meditation is. We start by coming to the class, and the teacher tells us to focus our attention.
Mhm.
Focus attention. They're like, focus your attention on your breathing, for example.
Right.
And then what's going to happen is eventually you're going to stop paying attention to your breathing and you're going to have spontaneous thought. Your mind is going to wander. It's inevitable. That's part of meditation. So you're going to become aware of that thought. And if the thought was, what am I going to eat later today? You're going to determine that it's not that important, that you should redirect back to your focal point, which the teacher said was the breath. And the cycle continues. This is the cycle of meditation. That's what meditation is. It's learning how to redirect your attention back. And it's like a muscle that gets stronger the more you practice it, the more reps you put in, just like exercising. However, it's actually not a muscle. That's just an analogy. It's neural networks in your brain that are changing their activity. And so we are working to strengthen the neural networks that are involved with paying attention, focusing, being emotionally regulated, and then to dampen or turn down the networks involved in me thinking, I, um, mind wandering off to other things when you're supposed to be focusing. So we're turning those down. And the more you practice, the better you get at it. But even the most advanced meditators, their mind wanders. You have to remember it's that process. And I think that helps us have a little more self-compassion when we do it.
Right. Yeah, it would be a pretty daunting task if it was about stopping your thoughts, right? And going for that, trying to force your mind to stop thinking. Uh,
Yes.
that would be difficult. But yeah, I love this definition. It's more of being aware and directing your awareness, right? The practice of uh, placing your awareness in a certain way or in a
Yes.
certain place. Yeah, I love that.
And it's a relaxed way. It's not a, oh my gosh, I'm doing it wrong, putting pressure on yourself, judging yourself for not getting. It is a relaxed way, an easeful way. If your mind wanders, know that it's natural and you say, it's okay, and come back. This is an opportunity to practice coming back. That's a part of the meditation cycle.
Wow. Yeah. And you mentioned some of the benefits. I know there's a lot of research and you present some of it here, but in general, what are the benefits of meditation and especially, if you're doing it as a practice on a regular basis,
Yeah.
what can we expect?
I like how you break it down for the regular basis because there's really immediate benefits that you get, and then there's the long-term benefits. And that's where we have a lot of evidence emerging of these long-term benefits. So the immediate benefits is you'll notice that your heart rate goes down. Your blood pressure immediately will go down as you go through a practice. You immediately are having changes in hormone levels that are being released in your brain and your bloodstream. That's immediate and it can last for long term too. You actually, some of the research shows that we have immediate immune boosting effects. Just from a 5-minute meditation, they saw before and after increases in something that helps to trap invaders. It's called secretory immunoglobulin A, SIGA. And just from 5 minutes of practice, we can increase the amount of this, and the participants it went up 240%. And that shows that your immune system is functioning better. That was just in 5 minutes, and it lasted for the whole day, for hours later for many of these participants. So we see immediate changes in our biochemistry. Additionally, we have electrical changes that are immediate. We may be in, like right now, we're conversing, or if you're listening to this, you're thinking about what I'm talking about, and you're in beta brain waves. You are thinking, evaluating, and then when we meditate, we go into this relaxed brainwave of alpha brainwaves. Meditation can also bring us into theta brainwaves, which are associated with creative thinking, and often children are in that brainwave pattern. And some meditation styles can bring us, recent research shows that it brings us into the delta waves, which is usually only seen in deep sleep. So you may be getting the benefits of deep sleep while you're awake and alert to be aware of your awareness. So these are the immediate benefits. I'll let you go, and then maybe I'll talk about the long-term benefits after that if you have any comments or questions.
Sure. Yeah, that piece or the what you mentioned about kids, that's so important. There's so many kids with ADHD and attention problems and learning problems. Would this be beneficial for them?
Yeah, I have a whole section in the book on how to meditate with your kids, techniques you can use with your kids. For teenagers, really, the whole book is appropriate because they have the mindset and the ability to read more like an adult. So you could have them do any of the meditations in the book for specific, for anxiety or sleep or depression or whatever the issue may be. There's even meditations in there for the social anxiety you feel when you go to a party, or for that overwhelm you feel after you've been doom scrolling or zombie scrolling through social media. So it could be a really great book for teenagers. But yeah, for kids to learn emotional regulation early is really great. And there's some things you can even do with toddlers to help them notice their feelings that are in the book, to help them observe what's coming up with my emotions, and then how do I regulate them through my breath.
Wow. And I imagine if the mom or dad are also meditating, then they're communicating that peaceful mindset to their child as well.
Yeah, to live by example, to when you're feeling dysregulated, do the same techniques that you're showing them. One really easy one that is fun to do with kids because it's tactile is to just, when you're feeling dysregulated, you're overwhelmed, just cover your right nostril and just breathe through your left nostril. And take slow breaths. Just take a few slow breaths. You could say, let's take 3 deep, slow breaths together. Left nostril breathing is associated, according to the yogis, but also we've seen this in some research studies, especially coming out of India, that it can help us feel more relaxed and go into that parasympathetic nervous system state. And then, of course, the slow breathing and taking a moment to be still and something tactile could be really helpful for them to just take a moment and check in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things I noticed in the book that it, these this yoga system and meditation system, of course, is ancient, right? It goes back thousands of years, but science is kind of just catching up to it and understanding that, oh, they understood these principles a long time ago, and they knew how to self-regulate, and that there was a way to work with the mind and the body in a conscious way, where the conscious mind is directing even the autonomic nervous system, right, which in the West was thought to be completely working on its own unconsciously. It seems to be able to, that through meditation and through concentration, we can regulate those aspects of our mind body.
Yeah, you said it. Neuroscience is just catching up. And listen, neuroscience is like space travel. There's so much to explore, and we know this tiny bit compared to how much there is to learn and discover. And the science is actually moving quite fast. For this book, Meditation for the Real World, I worked with Harvard neuroscientist Dr. Sarah Lazar. She's a researcher who's done a lot of really cool MRI scans and long-term research studies, a lot of groundbreaking studies on meditation and yoga. And she advised for it. And some of the things I learned even just 5 years ago, she's like, oh, no, that's a little out of date. Us neuroscientists, we're not talking about that anymore. We're more talking about these networks, and this is what we're more interested in. So it's really moving quite fast. And that's why I really wanted to have the most up-to-date science in the book, because we're discovering so much. And what the ancient yogis intuitively knew, and what you can feel and discover through practice. I mean, yogis can do extraordinary feats, like change the temperature of their hand in one area, but keep the other area cold.
Wow.
And these things that we can measure where we're like, wait, how did you do that? That's the autonomic nervous system. So, of course, there's that. We may never get to that point unless we're a monk, but to be able to change your emotions, your neurochemicals, your focus just like that through some breath work, through changing the focus point that you're having through a meditation practice to get these immediate results. I mean, that's quite magical. That can change your life. And many people say, not only did meditation change my life, it saved my life. And that's how I feel.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had a similar experience in about 20 years ago, I'd say. I had struggled with depression for a long time in my life. And around 20 years ago, it was a particularly hard time for me. And I was pretty concerned about my mental state of mind, my state of mind. So I was in Denver at that time. I just moved there, and there was a little Buddhist center a couple of blocks down the street. And so one day I just walked myself out there and just kind of sat in on their sessions, and I started meditating. And I felt after after a couple of months of regular practice, I would go like a couple of times a week. I started to feel the lifting of the depression just gradually, and since then I've been fine. For some reason, I haven't really experienced those difficult kind of episodes that I had gone through all my life. So it's an amazing practice, and I can see why neuroscientists would need to study these things, because it does have a real it affects a change in our mind body that is inexplicable, right? If we don't have an explanation in the West for that. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I used to live in Denver. I think I know the exact temple, so I can
Mhm.
imagine being there. And that brings up the great point that with long-term practice, all of these immediate results, they compound and they start to become more permanent or long-lasting. Like, for example, the neural changes, we then have neuroplasticity that builds new neural pathways, and new areas of your brain are going to have more activity in them that have to do with focus and that have to do with memory, and you're going to change the way your brain is structured. And what we find is that as people age, the brain in specific areas degrades, right? Gray matter and the prefrontal cortex, the part having to do with really paying attention, focus, and regulating your emotions, that starts to degrade. Parts in the hippocampus having to do with memory, they tend to degrade and have less connectivity as we age. It's just a part of natural aging. Well, with meditators and in some of the groundbreaking research that Dr. Sarah Lazar has done, we see that they have those same areas of the brain didn't degrade. They maybe even got stronger, maybe even got larger
Right.
compared to non-meditators, or they stay the same. So 50-year-old meditators having similar brain structures as their controls that are matched in their mid-20s in some of these studies. So you can slow perhaps that natural degradation of the brain that comes with age. And then, of course, with anxiety, depression, and chronic pain, we have degradation in certain areas of the brain too. And meditation is known to build back connectivity in those exact areas. So it's really amazing what it can do to the physical brain, to the neurochemistry long term, helping you to utilize dopamine more in a more regulated way, and serotonin. These endorphins become more regulated for you long term, as well as for beyond the brain to your cardiovascular health. Some of the most profound research on both yoga and meditation is having to do with how it can reverse contribute to reversing heart disease and lower your blood pressure, all these things that we go to the doctor for. And we
Yeah.
have some things in Western science, but you can also use meditation and yoga alongside to really get these impacts. So it affects all systems of your body. Just like I talked about in science of yoga, I go over how yoga affects every system of your body, your immune system, your endocrine system, the hormones, every system. Same with meditation. It's going to be a body-wide effect, cellular effect too. We're changing at a level of our telomeres. We're changing the length of the end of the telomeres inside the chromosomes. They
Mm.
have a cap that tends to get shorter with time. And with age, just like our brain tissue tends to degrade with age, this cap gets shorter with age. But meditators tend to have a longer cap. They tend to have a protective mechanism on the ends of their and the telomeres. So these are really profound benefits that we're uncovering through neuroscience, and there's a reason that this has stood the test of time. It works.
That's amazing. Does Dr. Lazar practice herself? Is she a
Of
meditator?
course. Yeah, she does. She's spoken in a short forward she wrote for the book about how she came to meditation or yoga because her physical therapist said, "Get over this running injury, go to yoga class." So just like us, she came initially for her own pain, and then was like, "Oh my gosh, this is not woo woo. This is working. I'm seeing that real profound difference in my life. So I want to commit my research to this."
Yeah. So many of the things that kill us in the modern world are really lifestyle diseases, right? Heart disease, dementia, um, diabetes, which is related to, uh, of course, the food that we're eating and the stress that we experience. All these could be reversed through meditation, essentially, and through yoga. Um,
Or prevented in a lot of cases. Your your likelihood of getting a disease, let's say your parents have, something that's in your genes, is actually, it's not as much a genetic factor as we think. Oh, my mom had that, so I'm going to have that. Instead, it's way more lifestyle. I mean, we think based off of twin studies, it's in the 90% perhaps of it is that it's lifestyle impacts whether or not you're going to get these diseases. And it's just that, of course, your genes play a role, but your lifestyle plays a way bigger role than we previously thought. We used to think it was all about the genes. And really, you can prevent a lot of things. And then if you have a chronic disease, you can use it as complementary medicine to improve your health. So it really helps whatever else you're doing work better.
Yeah, recently I've been reading and actually meeting people that tell me they have autoimmune problems
Mm.
or disorders. Have you seen or any research that addresses that issue?
Yeah, I specialize in arthritis and autoimmune sort of diseases often affect the joints. I've been tested myself for a lot of autoimmune diseases because I have some similar symptoms, and most of my clients deal with some level of autoimmune. And if you can affect your lifestyle, as you said earlier, yoga and meditation are a part of lifestyle medicine. They are this new approach to how you can help yourself heal. If you can improve your sleep, if you can improve your mindset, that's really huge. The way you think and feel, changing your thought patterns, that can make a huge impact. And so with autoimmune diseases, often the research is looking at the symptoms. Are you having better, higher quality of life? Health-related quality of life is one of the measures. Or are we sleeping better? And we find that meditation and yoga help with sleep, health-related quality of life, mental health, depressive symptoms, all of these sort of things that people with autoimmune disorders are really needing help with.
Right. Yeah, I wanted to ask you also on sleep. Yeah, I think you mentioned it, or you mentioned it in the book as well, that through meditation, we can actually receive some of the benefits of deep sleep.
Mm,
How
yeah.
does that work?
Yeah, one of my favorite types of meditation, it's one where you wouldn't think of it as like, oh, you don't have to sit like this. You lie down, you put pillows around you, you put pillows under your knees, and you just listen to this guided relaxation. In yoga, we call it a yoga nidra, or translate it yoga sleep. I think of it as like a little yoga nap. Um, and often now in modern day, neuroscientists at Stanford, Dr. Andrew Huberman calls it non-sleep deep rest, because we're not actually sleeping, although sometimes you might fall asleep, but you're getting that deep rest and rejuvenation. And this is a longer meditation. It's usually 15 to 30 minutes, sometimes even longer, but it feels like that. It feels like you just awakened from a nap afterwards. When you're lying there, you're going to like twitch a little bit. That twitching you feel when you're lying in bed before you fall asleep. We've all experienced that, where you almost wake yourself up. You're going to do that. But with meditation, we're aware of being aware. We are aware that we are going into those deeper brain waves. Sometimes you might fall asleep, and that's okay. That just means you needed sleep. But with practice, you get better. And in these states, you can process things at a deeper level. That's what we do when we sleep, and why sleep is so important. We believe that we're processing the day, processing things. So I think that it could be a really great complement, especially to do it in the afternoon or to help you sleep, or if you have trouble falling back to sleep in the middle of the night, is to listen to one of these longer practices of meditation, these yoga nidras or non-sleep deep rests.
So yoga nidra, you're still awake, you're still alert.
Unless you
But
fall asleep. But yes, with practice, you'll still be awake and alert.
got it. Got it. But the body and the physiology of the body is essentially in a
It
deep
is.
sleep state. Wow.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. I know mindfulness has become really popular these days. A lot of people talk about mindfulness. Is this the same as meditation?
Mindfulness is like a technique we can use in meditation. So let's describe mindfulness first. According to a researcher, John Kabat-Zinn, it's paying attention on purpose to the present moment without judgment, or to say it in a nicer way, with compassion, with self-compassion. If your mind wanders, remember that's a part of the process. Just come back. So you can be mindful during a meditation, right? Like paying attention to your breath and coming back to your breath. We're using that technique. That's an example of a mindfulness technique. Or I can be mindful while I'm washing the dishes. I can feel the warmth of the water on my skin. I can notice my posture, sink into my knees, feel grounded. I can hear the sounds around me as I wash the dishes. And the thing about it is that that present moment awareness is associated with happiness. It's also, obviously, when you're more present, you're more focused, so you're going to be more productive. And I think that's where mindfulness has gotten so popular, is because it does help people with productivity when you can improve your mindfulness through the day. But it's also become kind of a word that's been so overused that it can be, I don't know, it has lost some of its meaning. And I think we forget that there's so many other types or styles and techniques of meditation. And that's what I wanted to write about in this book. Yes, mindfulness and mindfulness tactics and techniques are in the book. They are awesome. But I wanted to dive into some of the things that have emerging research, like compassion meditation.
Mm.
The meditation I mentioned earlier that is 5 minutes long and has those immediate results of increasing SIGA that helps your immune system. That's a compassion-based meditation. You place your focus on your heart. You can even place your hands on your heart, and you think of someone you love, someone in your life. You can even do it as you're listening. Just think of them smiling and at ease. Send them light. And they did that. That's all they did for 5 minutes. And they found these crazy increases of these chemicals that are indicative of better immunity. So I think looking at a variety of techniques beyond mindfulness, still mindfulness is very valuable, but for certain situations, you might want to try a different technique. So for
Mm.
example, when I'm feeling angry at someone, or if I'm in traffic and I'm feeling frustrated, that's when I send compassion and loving kindness to other drivers, to myself. That's when I send compassion and loving kindness, perhaps even to the person I'm angry with, which is a Buddhist technique to send that good wishes. May they be safe. May they be happy. May they be free from suffering. May they be at ease. So that's a really good time to use that one. Now, mindfulness is great to use while you're in the shower, paying attention, being present, rather than off in some other place worrying about something in the future. So that's a really great technique to use, is to pay attention to your body sensations and your breath. But I've had a bad situation with that too, where I have this thing. I go to the doctor's office, and whenever I get a procedure that I'm scared of, and the doctor is maybe dismissive or the nurse is not really attentive,
Mm.
I pass out. I mean, to the floor. Sometimes I'm shaking when I come to. I don't even know who I am. I don't know where I am. I'm so dysregulated. For days, I'm recovering from that adrenaline. And so I went to a yoga teacher and I said, what can I do? And they said, of course, the classic, what everybody's doing is mindfulness. So like, pay attention to your body awareness and your breath, and try this next time you go to the doctor's office for a procedure. So I did. Guess what happened? I started to notice, oh, there's metal taste in my mouth. Oh, my heart is pounding and it's getting worse and worse. Oh my gosh, I'm going flush. And boom, I passed out quicker. So mindfulness of the breath and the body sensations is not the right technique for that specific situation. It actually makes it worse. And I dove into the research, and apparently the research supports this. When somebody deals with acute anxiety, breath awareness and body awareness tends to make that anxiety worse in the moment. Now, long term, being aware of your body could be a very helpful technique for anxiety, but for those acute situations, not the technique. So I want to shift the focus away from just everything. The answer is mindfulness.
Right.
No, in that situation, I need a different technique. And I found one of two techniques works, in case you're wondering, in case you have panic attacks out there and you have something similar. And what works is to ground down when I need to pay attention to what the doctor or nurse is saying to me. And listen, I feel my feet on the ground. I feel myself sitting on whatever surface. I place my hands palms down and I feel my hands touching the surface beneath me. I focus on my exhales and grounding. Now, when I don't need to pay attention, maybe it's like dental work and my mouth is open, so they're not going to ask me any questions. I do visualization techniques. So I'll visualize them at the beach. I'll wiggle my toes, literally wiggle my toes. Imagine they're in the sand to help distract myself. And I will do a visualization meditation. My breath will become the sound of the ocean. So, with that being said, I knew that different techniques help with different things beyond just mindfulness is the answer for everything. And it may not even be the answer for you. You may find the right technique for you. And that's why I really wanted to cover in meditation for the real world a variety of techniques. As a yoga therapist, I wanted to cover them for specific situations that you're dealing with. So you can use it as a handbook.
Excellent. That's great. Now, visualization. Does guided visualization count as meditation?
Yeah, it's a technique that can be used in meditation. That's your focus point. You're focusing on what the visualization is, and you're not thinking about your list of things to do. You're coming to the words that they're saying to you.
Excellent. And Buddhism, you mentioned Buddhism. A lot of these meditation techniques, of course, are part of and come through these uh, religious or spiritual traditions. Are they as effective applied by themselves, or are there studies that look at the difference of applying, let's say, meditation in a secular way versus within the constructs of a certain religion?
There are not a lot of studies that compare secular to spiritual, but I can think of one. And it is in the book, it's specific to headaches and migraines, which, if you deal with migraines or severe headaches, you know that it is a big mystery in medical science. How can we solve this? So what they did in this research is they had people do a secular meditation that was just very focused on, I think it was just breath awareness, something very like mindfulness, like that's used in the research, no spiritual component. And then they compared it to a spiritual meditation. And this one, they used a mantra. And the mantra was basically, you could create it yourself. So I'll give you the structure. It was blank is blank. Now, the first blank, if you connect with God, you'd say God or your word for God. If the universe feels better for you, you say the universe, something that's bigger than you. One person in the particular study chose Mother Nature as their first blank. So blank is, and then you can choose peace, love, good, compassionate, just whatever helps you evoke that sense of calm. So you choose. And all you do is you repeat that. That's your focal point. So the universe is kind. I think a lot of times when we deal with headaches and migraines, we get into a cycle of like, or chronic pain for that matter, any pain. We get into this cycle of, oh my gosh, it's coming. Now it's going to ruin my day. Now everything's going to go bad. Now I can't finish my work. Why does this happen to me? And so I think the reason that this spiritual meditation works so much better than the secular meditations for this particular situation is that with chronic pain, with something like a headache, that is so inexplicable for a lot of the causes in modern science, that surrendering, that concept we have in yoga of surrendering is what can really get the greatest results. And so that's what worked better was this spiritually based mantra. I thought that was really cool. So I included a lot of meditations that are specific to the research like that throughout the book too. So you can try them out for yourself when you have a headache, or if you know somebody that has headaches, sending it to them.
Excellent. But it seems like the bottom line is it still works. Even
Both
if
work.
you're not religious, you can still practice these techniques and gain a lot of both mental and physical benefits from
Yes.
meditation.
Yes, and mindfulness research tends to be secular. I think that's also why mindfulness gains so much popularity, is because it can be used in the corporate world. It doesn't necessarily need to be tied to that religious component or spiritual component. So there's a massive amount of research on mindfulness. That is the area of research we have the most of, but these other areas are starting to catch up, like with mantra. Well, we do have quite a bit on mantra, but compassion-based meditation, these are becoming more and more popular in the research field right now.
Yeah, fascinating. Uh, I could talk about meditation for days, but one last question. I know you mentioned it in the book. Does consistent, continuous meditation dissolve the ego?
Yes, as I mentioned, I'm working on that enlightenment part
Yeah.
of this. Um, Yeah, so the ego, we could, from a neuroscience perspective, start looking at that as the me centers in the brain, as some research at Yale points out, like they call it me centers or I centers of the brain. And these networks involved in that is the default mode network. That's that network we go into when we're like just mind wandering, mindless, not paying attention to what we're doing. And we do find that meditation turns that area and those areas and networks down. It lessens activity, but we can't say, how are we going to even study it? It dissolves the ego. In Science of Yoga, I have a whole section on how some really fascinating neuroscientists like Andrew Newberg have been studying astronauts and
Huh?
this phenomena that happens when astronauts come back from outer space. Many of them devote their life to service. They are just so inspired by that sense of awe that they felt when they looked down at Earth from space. They look down at Earth and they see it as a whole, as an organism, glowing, alive. They don't see the boundaries or the separations between the countries. When you're far enough away, you don't see that. You realize, as many of them describe, we made it all up. We made up the boundaries. We made up the economy. We made up the languages. We made up the I'm right and you're wrong. This is the way to do it. We made it all up. And so they come back with this new sense of purpose. One particular astronaut was so curious about it, he started looking and studying like through all perspectives. He was talking to neuroscientists and psychotherapists, and what is this? What is this that I'm feeling and that so many of us experience when we come back from outer space? And he finally found his answer talking to a philosopher that studied yoga and these ancient traditions in meditation. And he said, you know what? It's similar to samadhi or enlightenment. It's similar. What you're describing is what the ancient yogis and Buddhists described as this nirvana state, this higher state of being. And so that's what they're doing research on now, is this thing, they call it the overview effect, when astronauts look down and they see like, wow, this is a new perspective. But you don't have to go to outer space. I know we all dreamt of being an astronaut,
Right.
but not all of us became one. You don't have to go to outer space and be an astronaut to experience this. You can, through meditation, explore your inner space, to go deeper, And through meditation and yoga practices that prepare you, as you described earlier, for meditation, you can begin to get glimpses of this light, of this enlightenment in your life and feel a little lighter.
Wow. A great place to end it. So grateful for you being with us, Anne. And what a great book. Can you hold it up just one more time so we can see it and show
Yeah, it's
our viewers?
meditation for the real world. And if you can buy it anywhere books are sold, but if you go to meditationfortherealworld.com, I have amazing bonuses for you. So let me know you bought it there, and you'll get 14 days of free meditation with the scientific explanations. I also have a meditation music album that is developed to strategically change your brain waves to enhance your practice, as we talked about earlier. So
Sounds amazing. Thank you so much again. Stay well.
thank you.
Talk soon.
You too.